Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Coming up in the next hour. Israel mounts limited ground raids in Gaza. Raid Jalzone refugee camp in West Bank. Prime Minister Netanyahu convenes war cabinet. Germany says continuous terrorism from Gaza making it impossible to ease the humanitarian catastrophe, advocates two-state solution. EU foreign ministers meet in Luxembourg to debate on the situation in Israel and the region, also discuss the Ukraine war. Pakistani court indicts former PM Imran Khan and his deputy in an Official Secrets Act case. Khan is currently held in a prison near Islamabad. Former Indian cricket captain and legendary spinner Bishan Singh Bedi passes away at 77. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convened a meeting with security officials and his war cabinet in Tel Aviv to assess the escalating conflict with Hamas. This comes as the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict entered 17th day on Monday. And amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas conflict, Israeli Prime Minister held a series of conversations with Western leaders on Sunday, asserting that the country's victory over Hamas would be a victory for the entire world. Netanyahu briefed the leaders of France, Spain and Netherlands on the ongoing Hamas offensive and underscored the determination of people to eliminate Hamas's military and governing capabilities. Amidst the Hamas offensive, Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has said that military's campaign in Gaza may take a month or more, but at the end, there will be no more Hamas. Gallant was speaking after operational briefing at the Israeli Air Force Operations Command and Control Center. The minister expressed his appreciation to the Air Force and said the next stage, a widely anticipated ground operation, will come soon. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell has called for a pause in the conflict between Israel and Palestinian militants group Hamas to let more aid supplies into Gaza. At a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Luxembourg, Borrell said a pause will allow humanitarian aid for Palestinian civilians to enter Gaza.
The most important thing is to call for humanitarian support to go into Gaza. In Cairo, the Secretary General of the United Nations made a dramatic call in order to allow this humanitarian help to enter. On the first day, 20 trucks were allowed to come in, 20. Yesterday, were about 20 more. But in normal time, without war, 100 trucks enter into Gaza every day.
German Foreign Minister has warned that a continuation of terrorism from Gaza will result in no security and no peace for the region.
We can't contain the humanitarian catastrophe if the terrorism from Gaza continues this way. There will be no security and no peace, not for Israel and not for Palestinians, if this terrorism persists. We need a path for tomorrow.
Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel discussed developments in Gaza and the surrounding region. Biden held a meeting with leaders of France, Britain, Germany, Italy and Canada as well. After the meeting, White House released a joint statement from the world leaders, reiterating their support for Israel and urging the protection of its civilians. Taking to social media site X, US President Biden tweeted about his conversation with Netanyahu. He writes, "I also express appreciation for Israel's support in helping to secure release of 2 American hostages And Prime Minister Netanyahu and I discussed the ongoing efforts to secure the release of all remaining hostages taken by Hamas. Will continue to stay in close touch. On the ongoing developments, DD India correspondent Nick Harper reports from Washington.
On Sunday, he hit the phones to speak to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but he also spoke to Pope Francis, the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and 4 European leaders. The Israel-Hamas conflict was very much the main topic of conversation. Washington is trying to rally allies to give more support to Israel, but also more humanitarian aid to those Palestinians who've been caught up in the conflict. But behind the scenes, Washington is reportedly also trying to stall that potential ground invasion by Israel into the Gaza Strip. It's all to do with fears over hostage safety. On Friday, we saw the release of 2 American hostages by Hamas, but there's still around 200 other hostages still being held of various nationalities. And the fear is, if there is that ground incursion, it'll make it much harder to get those hostages out safely and to get humanitarian aid in to the Palestinians. Also, on Sunday, we saw warnings from the US Secretaries of State and Defense speaking about the possibility of escalation and the conflict spreading throughout the region. There seems to be a real fear from Washington that Iran or some of Iran's allies, like the Iran-backed group Hezbollah in Lebanon or allies in Syria, may look at this as an opportunity to try and increase and spread the conflict. We've seen an increase in activity at Israel's northern border, skirmishes there with Hezbollah firing rockets into the north of Israel. On top of all of this, Washington has put additional US troops stationed here in the US on preparedness for potential deployment, getting them ready in case they need to move to the region in a non-combat role. And on top of that, more defense systems being sent to the region. The US says it's all about protecting US troops and assets in the region. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
And DD India continues to track the latest developments on the war front as far as the Gaza conflict is concerned. DD India correspondent Amritpal Singh is joining us from Jerusalem with the latest. Amrit, as Israel ramps up the Gaza strikes, what are the real gains made by Israeli forces as far as the conflict with Hamas is concerned?
Shubhendu, you'll have to repeat your question. There was a slight audio problem.
Yeah, sure. Amrit, I was asking, with the ongoing conflict, what are the real gains made by the Israeli forces against Hamas?
Okay, Israeli forces have been able to hit some infrastructure of Hamas. They've been able to kill some of the political and military leadership. That's what they've been able to do. In terms of Hamas having weakened, well, there has to be an authentic report. Once a neutral party is able to give a report, there are claims and counterclaims. But let me tell you, Hamas still continues to remain strong because Hamas has a huge, cache of arms, rockets. It is continuously firing rockets into Israel. Till as the situation stands here, they tried, what I heard was they tried to enter yesterday from a point along the Gazan border, but they retaliated. One soldier of the Israelis was killed, 3 injured. So it is not very easy for them to go as of now. It is not that they can walk in and they would not meet resistance. They are a superior military power in terms of arsenal, in terms of military equipment, in terms of the sophisticacy of weaponry, etc. But Hamas is a guerrilla force, and fighting guerrillas in built-up areas has its own set of challenges. And they've amassed, obviously, when they did such an attack, they had prepared for retaliation from Israel. So they still remain a formidable force which can cause considerable damage to the Israeli side as well if Israel goes in. And perhaps that is the reason why, despite the grandstanding, despite the statements, we will finish them and we'll decimate them and they wouldn't know what hit them, they are and having amassed huge number of troops and equipment along the Gazan border, they are still not entering the Gazan border. Of course, one factor would also be the hostages and what could happen to them. But I think in terms of sheer military assessment, it will not be very easy for the Israelis to enter. They can enter, but they will take a hit.
Okay, Amrit, amidst the ongoing conflict, calls for humanitarian aid for civilians in Gaza has also been growing. What is the latest that you can share with us as far as supply and access to this aid is concerned?
Aid is going in. Yesterday 14 trucks went. Today we hear about 16 trucks have gone in. It's still there here. Trucks can go in. The agreement is of 20 trucks, though the UN aid chief very clearly said there's a small glimmer of hope. By assessment of the UN Refugee Agency and the UN Aid Agency, also of the Red Crescent, they need at least 100 trucks of humanitarian aid, including medical aid, on an everyday basis. That's the kind of requirement that is there, but that's not agreed upon. So 20 trucks are going. Something is better than nothing. It flows unimpeded, at least till now. So that's what the situation is.
And Amrit, finally, we see a series of high-profile visits to Israel of world leaders. Is there a certain common design, a direction in the diplomatic exchanges that are taking place?
The Western leaders are visiting, Olaf Scholz to Rishi Sunak to Joe Biden, now the Greek Prime Minister and the Netherlands Prime Minister visiting and meeting Netanyahu. They've expressed support for Israel. They say, we understand the reasons why you're conducting this military strike, etc., and the military campaign. And they say, we support you from day one, we continue to support you, you have our diplomatic and moral support. But they're also voicing concerns about the rising humanitarian costs. In fact, the Greek Prime Minister very clearly told Netanyahu today that they are worried about the humanitarian costs, and Israel should take measures to minimize the human costs and the loss of lives. And they've been calling upon Hamas, making statements to Hamas to release the hostages. Those negotiations via Qatar are going on. But yeah, that's what diplomacy is trying to do, to see what they can negotiate with the Israelis. And they're basically also building pressure on them for not going inside, because that would mean a steep climb in the number of casualties to the civilian Gazans. Today, in fact, the Greek Prime Minister's exact words were, Palestinians are not Hamas, clearly drawing a distinction, saying that we'll have to factor in the lives of the common civilians in Gaza. So that's what they're telling Netanyahu. The West continues to support Israel on this, and Israel has made it clear to the countries. Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to Western leaders and very clearly made it clear that unless Israel achieves its military objective, Israel is not going to let up the strikes on Hamas.
Amrit Paul, thank you for joining us with those updates from Jerusalem. We're heading for a short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Philippines calls on Beijing to stop provocative actions in South China Sea after vessel collisions. Argentina's ruling Peronist party smashes expectations to lead the country's general elections. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our continuous coverage of the Gaza war continues. Joining me is Arvind Gupta, former senior diplomat and former deputy NSA, also director VIF, to share his thoughts. Good evening and welcome, sir. Now, the Gaza war, the conflict has entered its 17th day. Your first observations on the direction in which this conflict is headed now?
It seems that the conflict is likely to continue and perhaps even intensify in the days to come because the diplomatic efforts that are being made so far have not produced the result, and the attacks have intensified and the number of casualties is rising every single day. Some aid has started trickling in, but that is just a trickle. And there is a clear danger of the conflict taking a wider dimension.
If we talk about the particular stakeholders, Iran has warned that the situation in the region could go out of control. What is at stake for Iran and other Arab countries to begin with in this conflict?
Well, Israel and Arabs have been at loggerheads for a very long time. Palestine being one of the causes, but there's also this Lebanese dimension to this as well. Lebanon and Israel, they are also have had previous Hezbollah and Israel have fought wars in the past. So now with the entire situation so highly destabilized, the chances are that there could be a wider conflagration unless the conflict is stopped from expanding right now. But it seems that the Israelis have still not achieved their military objective, and their military objective seems to be the destruction of Hamas. And they have also warned Hezbollah not to get involved in this war. And Hezbollah is a very strong party and waiting in the wings and how the situation develops. Some kind of skirmishes have taken place. Then there is also the Golan Height. I think there have been some skirmishes on the Golan Height in South Lebanon and Israel border. And of course, there is ongoing conflict in Gaza. So Israel is preparing for a land entry into Gaza. And that could, if that happens, that would lead to a much wider conflict. And Iran, which completely supports Hezbollah, is also likely to get involved if the conflict widens.
And sir, that particular point about the impending land invasion, how complex could the conflict go from here if that invasion were to happen?
It will be extremely complex. There will be huge number of civilian casualties, and it will be like urban warfare. And, a large number of troops will be required by the Israelis. And the Hamas has a whole network of tunnels, etc., within Gaza. And I'm told that there are about maybe 500 kilometers long tunnels. So it will be very difficult for the troops to identify and eliminate the Hamas. And the likelihood is that there could be a high degree of casualties.
But as we speak, we've seen a series of meetings of world leaders in Israel. The support has been, vocal support has been pouring in from the Western world, particularly the United States. In that context, how significant is Israel, defending Israel for the United States, for President Biden?
Well, Israel and the United States are absolutely one in this conflict. And Biden visited Israel recently, and he said, we stand with Israel completely. And this was a support which was highly appreciated by Israel also. Though they have been trying to counsel Israel some restraint, but that doesn't seem to be happening at this particular moment. Because there is this question of the hostages. And I think there are some American hostages as well. So a lot will depend upon what happens to the hostages. If the hostages issue can be resolved, and I think the Qataris are involved in this, then perhaps there could be some glimmer of hope in terms of the conflict dialing down a little bit. But that doesn't seem to be happening because that is the trump card which, unfortunately, the Hamas is using against Israel, because these are civilian hostages, and they are being used as the pawn in this Israel-Hamas war.
Right, and if we talk about the increased focus on civilian casualties in Gaza, sir, I mean, all the leaders have also been putting pressure on the Israeli government to be discreet in their military strategy, go for Hamas, but let the civilians not be collateral damage. Do you see any real pressure on Netanyahu to adhere to that line?
Well, there is a lot of pressure, but whether Netanyahu will agree to that is absolutely a separate question, because I think the latest reports coming out of the Gazan Health Ministry is that about 5,000 people have been killed since the start of the war, and civilians, of which about 2,000 are children. And there is also this question of the military objective set by Israel, that is of total destruction of Hamas. So how do these objectives square with each? I mean, the humanitarian side, the humanitarian dimension on one side, and the objective of destroying Hamas, which did commit heinous acts and a very, very condemnable and deplorable terror attack against Israel. So Israel is reacting. But whether that reaction is overreaction or not, that is the question that I think the Israelis will have to decide for themselves, because they have some military objectives in mind.
Okay, sir, and finally, even in supporting Israel's right to defend itself, countries like India, United States, United Nations, they've all advocated the two-state solution to the conflict. But the current war, how does it jeopardize any possible path to such a solution?
Two-state solution, even of the best of times, has not been implemented. So right now the war is raging, and it is very difficult to even think of any progress towards a two-state solution. Right now the question is how the civilian lives which are being lost, how does that stop? Whether the war can dial down a bit, a ceasefire can be brought in force, and whether there is a possibility of more aid going inside Gaza. So it's really right now focused mostly on hostages and humanitarian assistance. And two-state solution, etc., is a far-fetched thing at this time.
All right, Mr. Arvind Gupta there, thank you very much for joining us on the News Hour and sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Moving on, Philippines has again called on Beijing to stop its provocative actions in the disputed South China Sea after the Sunday collision of vessels. Beijing and Manila have each blamed one another for the incident. More in this report.
Tensions have flared in the region after two separate collisions between Philippine and Chinese vessels took place on a recent Sunday. Philippines repeated its call for stopping provocation from Chinese side.
The matter about filing another case is something that's still being studied by the government. But of course, all incidents like this will actually bolster the case that it's not the Philippines that's the aggressor, but the other party, which is China, that's actually undertaking dangerous maneuvers and blockades and putting at risk not only vessels, but more importantly, the people who are manning the vessels.
In the aftermath of these incidents, both Beijing and Manila pointed fingers at each other. The Philippines has summoned the Chinese ambassador and filed a diplomatic protest, while China's embassy in Manila has lodged a complaint of its own.
As we have repeatedly said in the past, continued Chinese blocking and interference by Chinese vessels with our regular and routine rotation and resupply missions RORE to BRP Sierra Madre may lead to disastrous results. While no lives were lost in the collisions yesterday, China's provocative and irresponsible actions have clearly imperiled once again the safety of the Filipino crew.
China once again urges the Philippines to take China's Solomon concern seriously, honor its commitment and stop creating tensions at sea. Stop taking dangerous actions, stop attacking the seamen in China, and tow down the naval vessels illegally grounded as soon as possible, so as to avoid undermining peace and stability in the South China Sea.
On the international stage, the White House has come out in support of the Philippines, accusing the Chinese Coast Guard of violating international law by intentionally interfering with the Philippine vessels. Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has ordered an investigation into Sunday's collision. China, Taiwan, Vietnam, Malaysia and Brunei claim the Spratly Islands and its surrounding waters, with China, Taiwan and Vietnam laying claims to all of the Paracel Islands in the north of the South China Sea.
In a first, South Korea on Sunday conducted joint aerial exercise with Japan and the United States. The drill aimed to expand the country's response capabilities against North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. The countries also agreed to carry out annual multi-domain trilateral exercise and set up a hotline for crisis communications. The US and South Korea also completed a joint anti-submarine exercise held from October 6th to 22nd near the naval base in Guam. Argentina is headed for a runoff vote between Economy Minister Sergio Massa and the far-right Javier Milei after a better-than-expected performance by the ruling Peronist coalition candidate in the country's presidential elections. Massa led Milei by 36.6% to 30%, with 98% of the votes counted on Sunday night.
A stronger than expected showing by Argentina's ruling Peronist coalition at a general election on Sunday has set the stage for a runoff vote on 19th November between Economy Minister Sergio Massa and far-right radical Javier Milei. Sergio Massa, buoyed by his robust showing in the initial round, has made a significant promise to the Argentine electorate. He pledged to lead a national unity government if he secures victory in the runoff election on November 16. This pledge signals a potential shift towards a more inclusive approach to governance in Argentina.
I will call for a national unity government on December 10 as president, but a national unity government made up of the best, regardless of their political affiliation, and not based on party agreements.
On the opposite end of the political spectrum, Javier Milei is rallying voters with a call to end Peronist rule in Argentina. His success in securing the second spot in the runoff against Massa showcases the deep divide in the Argentine political landscape.
We had the most important election in 100 years. An election that posed that if we continue with the culturalism model, or if we want to return to embrace the ideas of liberalism that made Argentina great in the 19th century. All countries that embrace the ideas of liberalism progress, while those who follow the populist ideas unite in misery.
Meanwhile, Patricia Bullrich, the candidate from the Conservative Party and the main center-right opposition coalition, accepted her electoral defeat after finishing third with 23.8% of the vote.
Our cause goes beyond an electoral time. It goes beyond a defeat, as today we acknowledge it.
The unexpected strength of the Peronists, despite grappling with soaring inflation rates not seen since 1991, sets the stage for a highly intriguing second round on November 19th. This runoff will represent a clash of contrasting economic models, with the future of the embattled country hanging in the balance.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Pakistani court indicts former Prime Minister Imran Khan in Official Secrets Acts case. Russia-Ukraine war rages on. And iconic Indian cricketer Bishan Singh Bedi passes away at 77.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, with music, art, cuisine, and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
You're watching DT India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. Former Indian cricket captain, legendary spinner Bishan Singh Bedi passes away at 77. Those are the stories. Meanwhile, Israel continues its ground attacks in West Bank. Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel convenes war cabinet. Germany says continuous terrorism from Gaza making it impossible to ease humanitarian catastrophe, advocates two-state solution. EU foreign ministers meet in Luxembourg to debate on the situation in Israel and the region, also discuss the Ukraine war. A Pakistani court has indicted former Prime Minister Imran Khan and his deputy in an official Secrets Acts case on Monday. A case was filed against Imran Khan for allegedly violating the Official Secrets Act by disclosing a secret diplomatic cable sent by Pakistan Embassy in Washington in March of 2022. The cipher was then used by Khan to build a narrative that his government was ousted due to what he said a foreign conspiracy. Khan is currently being held in a prison near Islamabad. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant, Delhi's Lieutenant Governor and Indian Minister Hardeep Singh Puri, along with G20 delegates, took part in a special plantation drive held in India's capital, Delhi. The drive aims to promote India's agenda of lifestyle for environment and combating climate change. Indian External Affairs Minister emphasized India's stand on climate change on the occasion.
The Green Development Pact, the message of women-led development, the support for digital public infrastructure, the life mission, the lifestyle, sustainable lifestyle for environment. At the end of it all, there was a very strong sustainability, green, global south image that came out of the G20. This G20, we would like it certainly to be remembered as a green G20, as a sustainable G20, in many ways as a G20 of the future.
Induction of African Union in G20 was endorsed by India's rising global stature. Jessica Taneja spoke to Deputy High Commissioner of South Africa to India, who applauded the effort.
We have with us the Deputy High Commissioner of South Africa to India, Mr. Cedric Crowley. Thank you for speaking to DD India. The success of G20 can be seen. We've had the Delhi Declaration, which was a success as well, catering to all kinds of conversation around what the G20 summit could achieve, especially talking about the induction of the African Union. How did you look at it?
And I think the Indian G20 presidency on all levels was a great success, and we congratulate India on the fantastic achievement and the real and concrete deliverables that they were able to put forward, especially the induction of Africa as a permanent member. We have been asking and calling for Africa to get greater voice in multilateral institutions, the G20 being an important one, and possibly one of the younger ones. And yet it has been able to induct Africa as a permanent member. We are still working on IMF and World Bank reforms of the Security Council, so that we can reflect the reality.
How important are these groupings? We talk about the G20, we talk about the BRICS. We have various such multilateral initiatives, which are now becoming the emerging voice of the Global South, and at least talking about initiatives that affect the developing nations and how they need resources to continue with the initiatives that have been put forth. Do you think that's gaining momentum now?
I think so. If we look at the institutional capacity that has been developed over time through relatively young organizations like BRICS and G20, we've seen the development bank of BRICS. That is something concrete. It is something that delivers on the ground. If we look at the action plan of the G20 on SDGs that was developed here, something concrete, something deliverable. Equally on the issue of debt and debt sustainability, decisions that are taken in the G20, it's easy to go and implement in the multilateral organizations like IMF and World Bank, because the key decision makers are around the same table.
Russian and Ukrainian armies continue to exchange fire, hitting one another's military targets. Ukrainian military has published drone footage showing armored vehicles exploding near Avdiivka as Russian troops are set to intensify pressure on the frontline town. Ukraine shot down 14 attack drones at its south and east region. Air defenses brought down 9 Iranian-made Shahid drones over the southern region of Odessa. Russian soldiers also blocked Ukrainian forces trying to cross the Dnieper River in Kherson. Coaching institutions for competitive examinations in India is a huge industry, but the Consumer Affairs Department has issued notice to 20 institutions for duping aspirants with misleading advertisements. DD India correspondent Vishal Baristo catches up with Special Secretary Consumer Affairs on this.
A fraud in the name of civil service selection has come to fore, and I have with me Special Secretary in Consumer Affairs. Let's talk to her and find out how many people, how many such institutions have you been able to find?
So we have sent notices to about 20 IS coaching institutes who were making misleading advertisements. We also found that many coaching institutes were claiming that the AIR #1 is from their coaching institute. So all this actually, it created a doubt, it created a suspicion that all is not well. And therefore, we sent notices to about 20 IS coaching institutes. We found to our horror that most of the people who were being claimed as successful candidates from their coaching institutes were actually those students who had already cleared prelims and mains exams. They had only gone online for, say, mock interview guidance, or they had only taken, say, 1 hour interview guidance. And this important information was not shared in the advertisements by any of these institutes who have been given this notice. Will amount to a penalty of 50 lakhs. So it is time that coaching institutes must be careful, and consumers should be also very, very wary.
So there you hear from the Special Secretary. If you are watching this news, so be very watchful and do not waste your money, but contact Consumer Affairs as soon as possible. With cameraman Shubham in Delhi, this is Vishal Baristo for DD India.
And for the latest from the world of sports, joining me is my colleague Deepika in the studio. Deepika, Bishan Singh Bedi no more. What a big loss to the world of cricket and sports.
Indeed, a very, very huge loss to the sports industry. This is Shupendu. Well, the former Indian cricketer Bishan Singh Bedi passed away on the 23rd of October at the age of 77. He made his debut against West Indies in the year 1966 and played his last test against England at the Oval in 1979. The cricketing world mourns his death, quoting as huge loss for cricket.
Indian cricket legend Bishan Singh Bedi has died aged 77 after a prolonged illness. He was battling age-related illnesses and had undergone a few surgeries in recent years. Bedi, regarded as one of the world's finest ever spin bowlers, captained India in 22 of his 67 tests and took 266 wickets. He made his debut against West Indies in 1966 and played his last test against England at the Oval in 1979. Bedi also played English county cricket for Northamptonshire and finished his career with 1,560 first-class wickets, the highest by any Indian bowler. Bedi was an integral part of a famed quartet of India's world-beating spin bowlers in the 1960s and 70s, which included Irapalli Prasanna, Bhagwat Chandrasekhar and Srinivas Venkataraghavan. The cricketing world mourns his death as a huge loss for cricket. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed grief over the demise of Indian legend. He posted on X, and I quote him, "Deeply saddened by the passing of noted cricketer Shri Bishan Singh Bedi ji. His passion for the sport was unwavering and his exemplary bowling performances led India to numerous memorable victories. He will continue to inspire future generations of cricketers. Condolences to his family and admirers. Om Shanti." Indian Sports Minister Anurag Thakur posted on X, "Deeply saddened to hear about the passing of legendary India spinner Bishan Singh Bedi."
भारतीय टीम के पूर्व कप्तान जिन्होंने देश के लिए बहुत लंबा समय खेला भी, प्रतिनिधित्व किया, बिशन जी आज हम सब के बीच में नहीं रहे। बहुत दुखद समाचार है। इस दुख की घड़ी में हम उनके परिवार के साथ हैं।
India's Home Minister says he is deeply saddened by the demise of the legendary spinner and former captain of the Indian cricket team Bishan Singh Bedi ji. Bedi ji will live in our memories not only through his contribution to the cricketing world, but also as the master of crafty bowling who could weave magic on the pitch. My heartfelt condolences to his family members and his fans in this hour of grief. Born in Amritsar in India's Punjab state, Bedi began playing cricket at school. When he turned 20, he became the 113th cricketer to represent India in tests. Bedi was by far India's most successful left-arm spinner until he was surpassed by Ravindra Jadeja earlier this year during the ICC World Test Championship final against Australia.
Not only this, 2 years ago, a book was also launched in his name, and the book was titled as Sardar of Spin. And I'm now joined by Mr. Ajay Mehra, former cricketer and the cricket expert and commentator. Thank you so much, Mr. Mehra, for joining us. When we talk about Sardar of Spin, his contribution is immense to the cricket fraternity, to the cricket pitches, to the cricket field altogether. The condolences are continuously pouring in. A very huge loss indeed.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a very sad day, and I think the entire cricketing fraternity will definitely miss him, Deepika, because his contribution, just not as a cricketer, but as a guide, as a mentor. I've spent a lot of time with him when I was playing for Punjab at the first class level. He was a coach, head coach. He was looking after the side as well. And the only time Punjab won the Ranji Trophy was under his guidance. And he was a man. He was one man who could really motivate you. He always used to say that he was a big motivator, and just the kind of role that he's also played in Indian cricket. As a coach of the Indian side, we all know he's a great left-arm spinner, probably the greatest ever. Just seeing his action, just seeing his ability, coming from a very humble background from Amritsar, the way he's risen just because of sheer hard work, and what he's done for Indian cricket, being the captain as well, he's led into many famous victories himself. Bowled some great spells in international cricket at the Test match level, and having spent a lot of time with him, it was such a great guide. Always with the Indian side as well. He used to say that fitness is a big thing that Indian cricketers should have, and I think over the generation you see now the era, the fitness plays such a big part. So I think his contribution to Indian cricket has been immense, and he'll be sorely missed by one and all. Those who knew him, off the field, on the field. I think his contribution has been absolutely wonderful and great.
And not only it is all about his contribution, but his vision. He was really futuristic. He looked at Himachal Pradesh and its pitches when people were looking at other and different pitches from across the world. He was focusing on Himachal even before the stadium was made over there. He used to sleep on the pitches itself. And not only this, he looked at spin bowling differently. His style of play was entirely unique.
Absolutely, and he's been a guide to so many great spinners. Name Maninder Singh, you name Murli Karthik, so many spinners. Just not one. So many spinners. And you rightly mentioned, he used to go to Himachal Pradesh, used to look after these grounds. I remember, myself having gone with him to Chel He was conducting so many camps out there because of the altitude there, and because it's one of the highest grounds in the world, the Child Stadium. And he used to be there for a long, long time in the summers, conduct camps there himself. He used to take teams outside, and the way he used to, mentor the youngsters, the way he used to guide the youngsters, and a lot of them have played for India, a lot of them have played for the at the first-class level for India. So, and just the way, his mannerisms, because he knew that, hard work was the most important thing. Himself, he's come through that. He's really worked hard in cricket, because he always used to say, he was not a great athlete, but he was always, one that was used to, have his skills be at his best. And just the way I think he's, performed for India. And, these are the greats. You name that era when India, had Prasanna, Bishan Singh Bedi, Chandrasekhar. That was the era when India won so many matches. And just his contribution to Indian cricket has been immense. Of course, the last few years, he wasn't keeping too well. He was sick as well, going through a few surgeries. But it's a very sad day in cricket, Deepika.
Any of the fond memory that you would like to share today?
Yeah, I was with him when we won the Ranji Trophy. Punjab won the Ranji Trophy, and Punjab has won only once, and he was a mentor. And I remember just before the finals as well, the kind of motivation we used to sit down, in our hotel room. He used to, just tell us that give your best. Every cricketer goes through, highs and lows, but give your best, and on the field, you should be 100%. Sometimes things go for you. The cricket is like life. You have your highs and lows, but you got to give your best. And remember those team meetings that we had with Bishan Singh Bedi, sir. Such a great guide. And also the fact, when we used to travel, he was with us, hearing stories about the past, about the great cricketers. And I remember, also with my father, who's a test cricketer, having played with Bishan Singh Bedi, because he also was from Amritsar, and Bishan Paji was also from Amritsar. And my father was the first test cricketer after partition to have played for India. And Bishan Singh Bedi always used to say, I used to say that I used to follow your father as well. I used to call him Brabji, and that's the way he used to work hard. My father, that's what Bishan Singh Bedi, did as well in his career. But I think, those people are great, because they didn't have those kind of coaching now you have, the kind of facilities you have as a cricketer. They used to play on, very, very normal grounds, in tough conditions. But now, of course, cricket is different. Cricket is going all way, in all towns, in every town, in every city as well. But that time, just hard work was the prime thing for any cricketer. And that's exactly what he did, and that's the reason he played for India for such a long time, and with a lot of laurels as well. And I think, those are the cricketers you got to understand, coming from a very small town, Deepika, coming from Amritsar, when there used to be, not too many coaches, not too much of guidance. But you see the skills that Bishan Paji had. And I also remember, sometimes the nets, we used to face him. As a batter, I was the opening batter of Punjab. He used to bowl to us in the nets. And his skills, even, having retired from the international cricket for a few years, his skills were outstanding. The line and length that he used to bowl with, the armor that he had, it was absolutely fantastic. And those greatness, that great things that he absorbed in his cricket, those were very evident when it was even, bowling in the nets.
Right. All right, Mr. Mehra, thank you so much for joining us. He would be remembered forever. Thank you. So that was all from the world of sports. Back to Shubhendu.
Thanks very much, Deepika. I was thinking that the Indian cricket team in the World Cup could also perhaps once again seek inspiration from the great Bishan Singh Bedi. Moving on, India is celebrating Durga Puja, an annual Hindu festival that marks victory of goddess Durga over demon Mahishasura. A festival originated in Bengal has gained popularity across the country and the world, with attractive pandals decorated by the puja committees. The city of Patna has special pandal modelled on the theme of Chandrayaan. The city has over 1,200 Durga Puja pandals set up. Thousands of devotees continue to gather at various pandals on the occasion of Navratri. Today is the 9th day of the 10-day festivities. The 10th day is marked as Dashera, where effigies of Ravan will be burnt as symbol of victory of good over evil.
দেবীর উদ্দেশ্যে অর্ঘ্যটি 108 দুর্বা সহ বিশেষ।
And DD India correspondent Salman Haider is joining us from Patna. Salman, as we come towards the close of Durga Puja celebrations in many ways, what has been the celebrations like?
Yes, Shubhendu, you can hear the loud music and Devi Aarti from here. I am in front of a pandal here in Patliputra industrial area where the large number of people have gathered to, in fact, fare goodbye to Devi Mata. Today, in fact, is the last, and Navratri ends today because today is Navam Durga Puja celebrations are going on here, and people are in joyful mood, and a lot of things are going to happen here, and the night is full of enjoyment, and you can see here behind me, this is the Durga Puja Pandal. Such fabulous pandals have been erected by the Bengal artisans. Mainly they come from Kolkata to make idols and pandals. And very beautiful pandals are decorated and have been erected by those artists from Bengal. And in Patna, more than 1,200 idols have been established there, and puja is going on. Just a while ago, Aarti happened here, and people participated with full religious fervor. Yes, Shubhendu.
All right, Salman, thanks very much for getting us those glimpses of puja celebrations. And some updates now on the Cricket World Cup matches. Pakistan has set a target of 283 runs against Afghanistan in the ICC World Cup match in Chennai. Pakistan captain Babar Azam top scored with 74 runs, while Imamul Haq, Shadab Khan, Iftikhar Ahmed made valuable contributions as well. For Afghanistan, Noor Ahmed took 3 wickets. Earlier, Pakistan won the toss and opted to bat. Pakistan openers Imamul Haq and Abdul Shafiq gave a good start to the team, but pacer Azmutullah Omarzai provided Afghanistan with the first breakthrough as he dismissed Imamul Haq. Till the last reports came in, Afghanistan were at 59 for the loss of no wickets. To the 4th Asian Para Games in Hangzhou, China, India's Prachi Yadav opened India's medals tally at the 4th Asian Para Games, winning the silver medal in the canoeing in women's VL2 category. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulated Prachi for her silver medal win. He posted on social media platform X. He says, I quote, Prachi Yadav etches her name in the history of Indian sports by securing first medal at the Asian Para Games. Congratulations to Prachi on winning the remarkable silver medal win in para canoeing women's VL2 finals. Her incredible performance has made the entire nation proud. In men's high jump, T63 category, India sweeps the podium. Sailesh Kumar won the gold medal with a game record of 1.83-meter jump, bagging India's first gold in 4th Asian Para Games. Paralympics gold medalist Mariyappan Thangavelu with a jump of 1.8 meters gets silver. Ram Singh Padiyar, 1.78 meters, gets bronze in the 3-way contest. In men's club throw F51 category, India clinched all the 3 medals which were there for the taking. Pranav Surma won the gold medal in men's club throw category. Dharambir settled for silver, while Amit Saroha bagged the bronze. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.